1 year after the Zephyron incident, the galaxy had settled into a new normal. The Shadow Fleet operated openly now, conducting patrols and humanitarian missions across dozens of star systems. Their presence had become a fixture of galactic politics, a constant reminder of Earth's power and commitment to its allies. Captain Carter commanded the Defender on a routine patrol near the border of Thracian space. The treaty with the Thracian Union had proven successful, creating a model that other species were eager to follow. Dozens of similar agreements had been signed, creating a web of alliances centered on Earth. "Captain, we are receiving a distress signal," reported Lieutenant Kyle Barnes, the communications officer. "It is coming from a civilian transport ship. They are under attack by pirates." Carter sat forward in his chair. "What is the transport carrying?" "Medical supplies bound for a Calorian settlement on the border worlds. They have no weapons and minimal shields. The pirates are demanding they surrender their cargo. Plot an intercept course. Maximum speed. Weapons, charge all systems but hold fire until I give the order." The Defender moved swiftly through space. The pirate ships were small, maybe a dozen vessels preying on an unarmed transport. They had no idea what was coming for them. When the Defender dropped out of faster-than-light travel right next to them, their sensors must have screamed warnings. "Open a channel to the pirates," Carter ordered. "Let me talk to them." The channel opened. Carter could hear confused voices on the other end. "This is Captain John Carter of the Earth Shadow Fleet vessel Defender. You are attacking a ship carrying humanitarian supplies to refugees. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. Choose now." There was silence for about 3 seconds. Then the pirate ships powered down their weapons immediately. Their leader's voice came through, shaking with fear. "We surrender. Do not fire." "We did not know it was a humanitarian mission." "Ignorance is not an excuse," Carter said coldly. "But it is better than defiance. Stand by for boarding teams." The pirates were taken into custody without resistance. They would be handed over to the nearest law enforcement authority. The transport ship continued on its way, grateful and unharmed. It was a small incident, barely worth reporting, but it showed how things had changed. The mere presence of a Shadow Fleet ship had been enough to end a pirate attack without firing a single shot. Later that day, Carter received a message from Commander Stone. "Captain, I watched the recording of your encounter with the pirates. Well handled. You achieved the objective without unnecessary violence. That is what the Shadow Fleet should be, a deterrent first and a weapon only when necessary." "Thank you, sir. I have been thinking about something lately. The Shadow Fleet has become famous for what it can destroy, but I think we should also become famous for what we can protect and save." "I agree," Stone replied. "In fact, Admiral Morrison has been working on a new initiative. She wants to create a humanitarian division within the Shadow Fleet. Ships specifically designed for disaster relief and refugee assistance. Ships that carry the Shadow Fleet name but focus on saving lives rather than taking them." Carter felt excited by the idea. That would be perfect. It would show the galaxy that we are not just destroyers. We are also builders and helpers. Exactly. And you are being considered to lead that division. But that is a discussion for another time. For now, continue your patrol. The months continued to pass. The Defender and other Shadow Fleet ships responded to crises across the galaxy. Sometimes they fought pirates or smugglers. Sometimes they rescued ships in distress. Sometimes they simply showed up at trouble spots, their presence alone enough to keep the peace. The Calorian refugees had settled into their new homes successfully. Their children attended schools alongside human children. They learned each other's languages and customs. Mixed communities formed, showing what cooperation between species could achieve. The Zephyron hegemony continued its slow rehabilitation. Their new government had released all political prisoners, ended their aggressive territorial expansion, and begun trading peacefully with their neighbors. Some observers remained skeptical, but others saw genuine change. One day, Carter received an unexpected message. It was from a Zephyron officer, one of the survivors who had been rescued after the battle. His name was Crix, and he requested a video call. Carter accepted, curious about what the Zephyron wanted. Crix appeared on the screen. He looked different from the injured, scared survivor Carter remembered. Now he wore the uniform of the new Zephyron Defense Force, a reformed military focused on protection rather than conquest. "Captain Carter, I wanted to thank you personally. You saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. That act of mercy changed me. It changed many of us who survived. You do not need to thank me, Carter said. We did what was right. But that is exactly why thanks are necessary. You showed us that doing what is right is more important than revenge. That lesson has spread throughout my people. We have new leaders now. Leaders who understand that strength should protect, not oppress. Crix continued. I am now an officer in our reformed military. We are training our forces to follow the example you set, to be powerful but merciful, to fight when necessary but to always remember that our enemies are people too. It is a difficult balance, but we are learning. Carter felt a mix of emotions, pride that humanity's actions had inspired positive change, but also humility, knowing how close they had come to letting anger override mercy. I am glad to hear it, Crix. The galaxy needs more species who understand that balance. Perhaps our peoples can work together in the future, building something better than what came before. I would like that, Crix said. Not today, perhaps. The wounds are still too fresh. But someday, when enough time has passed and enough trust has been rebuilt, someday Zephyrins and humans might stand side by side as friends instead of enemies. After the call ended, Carter sat quietly on his bridge. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. From witnessing the Calorian massacre, to commanding one of humanity's most powerful warships, from calling for vengeance to hoping for reconciliation. Lieutenant Barnes approached him. Captain, we have received orders for our next mission. We are to escort a diplomatic convoy to the Outer Rim. Several species there are requesting membership in the Galactic Council, and they want Shadow Fleet protection during the journey. Then we will provide it. Set course and inform the convoy that the Defender will keep them safe. As the Defender prepared for its new mission, Carter reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, the galaxy had been shocked by the revelation of the Shadow Fleet. Many had feared that Earth would use its power to dominate or conquer. Instead, Earth had used that power to protect and serve. The Shadow Fleet had become what its creators had always intended, a force for stability and justice. Yes, it could destroy when necessary. Yes, it could unleash terrible violence when pushed. But it could also protect the weak, rescue the endangered, and give hope to those who had none. Carter thought about the future. The galaxy would always have threats. There would always be those who chose cruelty over compassion, aggression over cooperation. But now there was also the Shadow Fleet standing watch, ready to respond. More importantly, the Shadow Fleet had become a symbol that power without mercy was empty, but that mercy without power was helpless. Together, power and mercy could create something better. They could create real peace, not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice. The diplomatic convoy formed up around the Defender, small ships from a dozen different species, all seeking a voice in galactic affairs, all trusting Earth to keep them safe during their journey. It was a responsibility Carter did not take lightly. All ships report ready, Captain, Barnes reported. Then let us begin. Helm, take us to the Outer Rim, standard patrol speed. Stay alert for any threats. The Defender led the convoy out of safe space and toward the frontier. Carter knew there would be challenges ahead. Pirates, hostile species, natural disasters, any number of threats could appear. But he also knew his ship and crew were ready. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. And if necessary, they would fight for this. But fighting would always be the last resort. First would come warnings, then demonstrations of power, then, if absolutely necessary, the use of that power. But always measured, always proportional, always with the goal of ending conflict rather than escalating it. That was the lesson of the Zephyron incident. Power without restraint led to atrocities. But power with wisdom, power guided by principles, power in service of justice that could change the galaxy for the better. As the stars blurred past the Defender's windows, Carter felt a sense of peace. The Shadow Fleet had emerged from darkness, revealed to a shocked galaxy. But it had not become a tool of oppression or conquest. Instead, it had become exactly what it was meant to be, a guardian, a protector, a force that made the galaxy safer for those who could not defend themselves. The journey was far from over. New challenges would arise. New threats would appear. The galaxy would continue to test Earth's commitment to its ideals. But Carter was confident in humanity's response. They had been tested once and had passed. They would be tested again and would pass again, because 3 months had passed since the battle. Captain Carter stood once again on the bridge of the Valiant, but everything felt different now. The ship was no longer on patrol near Earth. Instead, it was escorting a convoy of refugee ships carrying Calorian survivors to their new homes on human colony worlds. Lieutenant Brooks monitored the convoy's progress. All ships are maintaining formation, Captain. We should reach New Terra Colony in 6 hours. Good, keep scanning for any threats. I do not want any surprises. Commander Hamilton looked up from his station. Sir, we are receiving a priority message from Earth Command. It is Admiral Morrison, and she says it is urgent. Carter felt a familiar tension. In the past 3 months, every urgent message had brought news of some new crisis or political challenge. Put her through. Admiral Morrison appeared on the screen. She looked tired but pleased. Captain Carter, I have good news. The Thracian Union has formally requested a security treaty with Earth. Chancellor Verum himself is en route to Earth with a diplomatic fleet to sign the agreement. Carter felt surprise wash over him. The Thracians were one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. For them to seek Earth's protection was significant. That is excellent news, Admiral. What changed their minds? Morrison smiled grimly. Intelligence reports suggest that several aggressive species have been making threatening moves near Thracian space. The Thracians have the military power to defend themselves, but they want insurance. They want potential enemies to know that attacking Thracian worlds means facing the Shadow Fleet. So the deterrent is working, Carter said. It appears so. We have received 47 formal requests for security treaties now. Earth Command is reviewing each one carefully. We are building a network of alliances that should prevent future betrayals like what happened to the Calorians. After the transmission ended, Carter shared the news with his senior officers. The mood on the bridge lifted slightly. For months they had worried that revealing the Shadow Fleet had been a mistake. Now it seemed like the gamble might be paying off. Do you think it will last? Brooks asked. This new peace we are building? Hamilton answered before Carter could. Peace is not permanent, Lieutenant. It is something you have to work at every day, but at least now we have tools to protect it. Tools that everyone knows about. The convoy reached New Terra without incident. Carter watched as the refugee ships landed on the colony world. Calorian families emerged, carrying what little they had managed to save. Human colonists greeted them warmly, offering help and hospitality. Carter received an invitation to attend the welcome ceremony on the planet's surface. He took a shuttle down with several crew members. The ceremony was held in a large open plaza in the colony's main city. A Calorian elder approached Carter. She was old, with gray fur and wise eyes that had seen too much tragedy. Captain Carter, I am Elder Mira. On behalf of my people, I want to thank you for what you did. You called for help when we needed it most. Carter felt uncomfortable with the praise. I wish we could have saved more. I wish we had arrived sooner. You arrived when you could, Mira said gently. And you made sure that those who killed my people faced justice. That matters. It means our dead did not die for nothing. What will your people do now? Carter asked. We will rebuild. Here on your worlds. We will start again. And we will remember. We will teach our children about the Zephron betrayal. We will also teach them about how humanity responded. How you saved us even though you did not have to. How you offered us new homes when ours were destroyed. She placed a weathered hand on Carter's arm. That is the legacy you are building, Captain. Not just fear of your weapons, but gratitude for your kindness. Both are important. Both will shape the galaxy's future. The ceremony included speeches from both human and Calorian leaders. Children from both species played together in the plaza. It was a glimpse of the future that Earth was trying to build. One where different species could live together in peace, protected by the knowledge that aggression would not be tolerated. That evening, Carter received new orders. The Valiant was to report to the Harbinger for reassignment. Commander Stone wanted to speak with him personally. Carter took another shuttle, this time traveling to where the Shadow Fleet maintained its patrol. Stone met him in the same conference room as before. The older commander looked different somehow. Less tired, more settled, as if he had finally made peace with his role. Captain Carter, thank you for coming. I wanted to discuss your future. My future, sir. Earth Command is expanding the Shadow Fleet. We are building new ships and recruiting new crews. We need experienced captains who understand what this fleet represents and what it should never become. I would like you to join us. Carter had not expected this. Commander, I am honored, but I am not sure I am the right person. I called for Protocol Omega. I started this whole chain of events. That is exactly why you are the right person, Stone said. You understand the weight of the decision. You know what it means to call down this kind of power. You will not do it lightly or easily. That is the kind of captain the Shadow Fleet needs. He stood and walked to the window. The Shadow Fleet is not about glory or conquest, Captain. It is about responsibility. Every ship in this fleet carries the power to destroy worlds. Every captain needs to understand that power and respect it. More importantly, they need to understand when not to use it. Carter thought about it carefully. Joining the Shadow Fleet would mean leaving behind his regular duties. It would mean carrying an even heavier burden. But it would also mean being part of something important, something that could shape the galaxy's future for the better. I accept, Commander. When do I start? Stone smiled. In 3 months. You will take command of one of the new Reaper-class ships. Until then, continue your work with the refugees. Show the galaxy what humanity stands for when we are not fighting. Over the next 3 months, Carter continued his refugee escort duties. The Valiant transported Calorian survivors, delivered humanitarian supplies, and helped establish new settlements. It was quiet work, far from the drama of battle, but it was important. During this time, the galaxy continued to adjust to the new reality. More species signed security treaties with Earth. The 6 conspirator species that had helped the Zephrons faced ongoing political turmoil. New governments rose, promising to honor treaties and respect their neighbors. The Zephron hegemony itself underwent massive changes. Their old government fell, replaced by reformers who wanted to make amends for past crimes. They paid reparations to the Calorian survivors. They prosecuted the officers who had carried out the massacre. They tried to rebuild their reputation, one small step at a time. Not everyone was satisfied with these changes. Some wanted harsher punishments. Others felt the Zephrons were getting off too easily. But Earth Command held firm. The point had been made. Justice had been served. Now it was time to move forward. On Carter's last day commanding the Valiant, his crew threw him a farewell party. They had served together for 5 years, through peaceful times and terrible ones. Now he was moving on to something new. Lieutenant Brooks gave a speech, her voice thick with emotion. Captain Carter taught us that strength and compassion are not opposites. He showed us that you can carry the biggest guns and still have the kindest heart. He made us better officers and better people. Commander Hamilton presented him with a gift, a piece of metal from one of the Calorian ships that had been destroyed. It had been shaped into a small sculpture, a memorial to those who had died. So you never forget why we do this, Hamilton said. So you always remember what we are fighting to protect. Carter accepted the gift with gratitude. It would go with him to his new ship, a reminder of the cost of failure and the importance of success. The next day, Carter reported to Earth's orbital shipyard. His new ship was waiting there, a Reaper-class dreadnought fresh from construction. It was massive, powerful, and intimidating. The name painted on its hull was simple but meaningful. The Defender. Commander Stone was there to meet him. Your ship, Captain. Use it wisely. Use it well. And hopefully rarely, Carter saluted. I will do my best, sir. He boarded the Defender and took his place on the bridge. The crew was new, but they were well-trained and motivated. They understood what it meant to serve on a Shadow Fleet vessel. They knew the responsibility they carried. As the Defender left orbit and headed for its patrol route, Carter thought about everything that had happened. 3 months ago, he had witnessed the worst kind of betrayal. He had called for terrible vengeance. He had watched as the Shadow Fleet had demonstrated humanity's capacity for overwhelming violence, but he had also seen mercy. He had seen compassion. He had seen humans and aliens working together to build something better. The Shadow Fleet had revealed humanity's dark side, but also its bright one. The capacity for destruction, yes, but also the will to protect and help. That balance was what Carter would try to maintain. The Shadow Fleet would be ready to fight when necessary, but it would also be ready to help, to protect, to save. It would be the sword and the shield, the fist and the open hand. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Betraying humanity's friends had consequences, but so did asking for humanity's help. The Shadow Fleet would respond to both with equal commitment. 2 weeks after the battle, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the massive council chamber on the neutral world of Sanctuary Prime. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ambassador, Lisa Martinez stood in the center of the chamber, wearing her Earth Fleet uniform. She had spent days preparing for this moment, knowing that what she said here would shape humanity's future in the galaxy. The holographic recordings of the battle floated in the air around her, visible to every delegate. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I will not waste your time with excuses or apologies. You have all seen the recordings. The Shadow Fleet exists. It has always existed. And yes, Earth kept it secret from this council." The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded sanctions. Others called for military action against Earth. Martinez waited patiently for the speaker to restore order. Chancellor Verum of the Thracian Union stood up. He was tall and dignified, with blue scales covering his reptilian body. "Ambassador Martinez, Earth has violated numerous treaties. You maintained a secret military force larger than some entire planetary defense fleets. The question is simple. What should we do about it?" Martinez met his gaze without flinching. "The question you should be asking, Chancellor, is why the Shadow Fleet was built in the first place. 23 years ago, humanity made first contact with an alien species called the Verith Collective. They were the first aliens we ever met, and they tried to exterminate us." The chamber became quiet. Many species knew parts of humanity's first contact story, but few knew the full truth. They did not want to conquer us. They did not want to enslave us. They wanted us dead, completely extinct. In the first week of that war, 3 billion humans died. 3 billion. That is more than the entire population of some species represented in this chamber. She walked slowly around the center platform as she spoke. "We won that war, but barely. And we learned something important. No matter how much we wanted peace, no matter how much we believed in diplomacy and cooperation, we needed insurance. We needed a backup plan. So we built the Shadow Fleet." A representative from the Corvin Assembly spoke up. "But Ambassador, you kept this fleet secret for 20 years. You signed treaties promising to limit your military capabilities. You lied to this council." "We did," Martinez admitted. "And we would do it again. Because for 20 years we did not need the Shadow Fleet. We engaged in peaceful trade. We formed genuine friendships. We worked toward building a better galaxy. But then the Zephrons betrayed our friends. They murdered 60,000 innocent people in an ambush. They executed refugees in escape pods. And they did it all while broadcasting their crimes as entertainment." Her voice hardened. "So we released the Shadow Fleet. And we would make the same choice again every single time. Because that is what the fleet was built for. To protect our friends when diplomacy fails and evil triumphs." Another delegate stood. "Your response was excessive. The Zephyrin fleet was disabled. You could have stopped there. Instead, you continued firing for 20 minutes. That was not defense. That was vengeance." Martinez activated a holographic display showing the casualty numbers. "The Zephrons killed 60,000 Calorians over 3 hours. They hunted them systematically. We killed 8,000 Zephrons in 20 minutes and saved 2,000 more. Would you like to discuss proportionality? Because by any measure, our response was far more restrained than what was done to our allies." The numbers hung in the air, undeniable proof that humanity's response, while brutal, had been measured. Chancellor Verum spoke again. "The Council is concerned about precedent. If every species maintains secret weapons, how can we trust each other? Then maybe everyone will think twice before committing genocide," Martinez shot back. "That is the point, Chancellor. The Shadow Fleet is not a weapon of conquest. We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We want peace. But we will defend our friends with everything we have when that peace is broken." She activated another display, showing communications intercepts and data files. "This is intelligence we recovered from the Zephron ships. They were not acting alone. 6 other species in this very chamber helped plan the ambush. 6 civilizations conspired to commit genocide and divide Calorian territory among themselves." Chaos erupted. Delegates turned on each other. Accusations flying in dozens of languages. Representatives of the 6 conspirator species tried to protest their innocence, but the evidence was overwhelming. Martinez let the chaos continue for a moment, before raising her hand for silence. "Earth is prepared to share all of this intelligence with the Council. We are also prepared to work with any species that wants to ensure this never happens again. But understand this clearly. The Shadow Fleet will remain operational. It will be ready. And if anyone tries to repeat what the Zephrons did, they will face the same consequences." She looked directly at the 6 conspirator species. Some of you in this chamber participated in planning genocide. You thought you could get away with it. You were wrong. The evidence will be made public. Your own people will judge you. And if you ever try something like this again, the Shadow Fleet will come for you too. Martinez returned to her seat. The vote would happen tomorrow, but she knew the outcome was far from certain. Some species would demand sanctions. Others would call for stronger action. But she also knew that behind closed doors, most of them would be reconsidering their diplomatic strategies very carefully. After the session ended, Chancellor Verum approached her in a private corridor. That was quite a performance, Ambassador. It was not a performance, Martinez replied. Every word was true, Verum nodded slowly. I know, that is what concerns me. But it is also why the Thracian Union will vote in your favor tomorrow. We have no interest in testing humanity's resolve. We have seen what happens to those who do. Thank you, Chancellor. Do not thank me yet, Verum said. This vote will be close, very close. And even if you win, the galaxy has changed. Many species will fear you now. Fear can be as dangerous as aggression. We know, Martinez said. But fear of consequences is better than the alternative. If species fear attacking our friends, then our friends are safer. That is what matters. The next day, the vote took place. The chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from every member species present. The tension was incredible. This vote would determine whether Earth remained part of the Galactic Council or faced sanctions and isolation. The speaker called for the vote. The question before the Council is simple. Should Earth face sanctions for maintaining the Shadow Fleet in violation of treaty agreements? Those in favor of sanctions indicate now. Lights appeared throughout the chamber as delegates voted. Martinez watched the count with carefully controlled tension. She knew that Earth could survive sanctions, but it would make everything harder. Trade would suffer. Alliances would weaken. The cause of peace would be set back years. The speaker announced the results. 96 votes in favor of sanctions. 104 votes against. The motion fails. Earth will not face sanctions. Martinez allowed herself to breathe. It was close, far too close, but they had won. Earth would remain part of the Galactic Council. The Shadow Fleet would continue to operate openly, but the victory felt hollow. The vote had been close because many species genuinely feared what Earth might do next. They had seen the Shadow Fleet in action. They had seen what humanity was capable of when pushed. And now they wondered if Earth would use that power for more than just defense. After the vote, Martinez sent a message back to Earth Command. We won the political battle, but we may have lost something more important. We have made the galaxy fear us. Now we need to prove that their fear is justified only if they threaten us or our friends. We need to show that we can be trusted with the power we possess. The response from Admiral Morrison came quickly. Understood. New orders are being prepared. The Shadow Fleet will conduct humanitarian missions alongside its military patrols. We will show the galaxy that our power can protect the weak, not just punish the guilty. We will prove that we are the good guys even when we carry the biggest guns. Martinez smiled for the first time in days. It was a good plan. Actions would speak louder than words. The Shadow Fleet would become known not just for the destruction it could cause, but for the lives it could save. Over the following weeks, the galaxy adjusted to the new reality. The 6 species that had conspired with the Zephrons faced internal upheaval as their people learned of their government's crimes. Some leaders were removed from power. Others faced criminal charges. None escaped consequences. Meanwhile, smaller species began requesting protection treaties with Earth. They had seen what happened to the Calorians when they were betrayed. They had also seen how Earth had responded. Now they wanted that protection for themselves. Earth Command reviewed each request carefully. They accepted treaties with species that shared human values and could contribute to mutual defense. They rejected requests from species with poor records on sentient rights or those seeking protection, while planning aggression against their neighbors. The message was clear. Earth would protect those who deserved protection. But the rescue operations began immediately. Shadow Fleet ships moved through the wreckage, scanning for life signs. Medical teams prepared their facilities. Combat drones that had been weapons of destruction moments ago now carefully extracted survivors from damaged ships. The Valiant received orders to assist. Carter's crew moved into action, despite their complicated feelings about saving the same beings they had wanted to see punished. Lieutenant Brooks coordinated with the medical bay while Hamilton directed the rescue drones. The first Zephron survivor brought aboard the Valiant was a young soldier, badly injured, but alive. Dr. Chris Palmer worked quickly to stabilize him. The Zephron's large insect eyes moved with fear as he looked around the human medical bay. "Please," the Zephron whispered in broken human language, "do not kill me. I was following orders." Palmer looked at him with professional calm. "We are not going to kill you. We are going to save your life. That is what we do. We are not you." More survivors came aboard. Some were defiant, still believing their cause was just. Others were broken, traumatized by what they had experienced. The human medical teams treated all of them with the same level of care. Burns were treated, broken bones were set, lives were saved. Commander Hamilton approached Carter on the bridge. "Sir, I have to ask, why are we doing this? After what they did to the Calorians, why do they deserve our help?" Carter looked out at the debris field where the Calorian fleet had died. "They do not deserve our help, Commander. But we are not doing this because they deserve it. We are doing this because we are better than them. We can unleash hell when we need to, but we do not become monsters in the process. That is the difference between humanity and species like the Zephrons." He turned to face Hamilton directly. "In the end, that is why we will survive and they will fall. We know when to fight and when to show mercy. We know the difference between justice and cruelty. They do not." The rescue operations continued through the night cycle. Every surviving Zephron was accounted for, treated, and secured. In total, 2,000 Zephrons had survived the battle. 8,000 had died. The disparity with the Calorian casualties was stark. 60,000 Calorians had been killed in the initial ambush. Commander Stone sent new orders. All Zephron prisoners would be returned to their homeworlds within 1 week. They would be sent back with a message from Earth Command. A message that would be heard by every species in the galaxy. 3 days after the battle, Carter was summoned to the Harbinger for a meeting with Commander Stone. He took a shuttle across the short distance between ships. The interior of the Harbinger was like nothing he had ever seen. Dark corridors, minimal lighting, and technology so advanced it seemed almost alive. Stone met him in a conference room. The older commander looked tired. His eyes carried the weight of decisions that few people ever had to make. "Captain Carter, thank you for coming. I wanted to speak with you before we send the prisoners home." "Of course, Commander. What do you need?" Stone activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with Earth at its center. Lines connected Earth to dozens of other star systems. "This is the new reality we have created. Word of what happened here has spread faster than we anticipated. 43 species have already contacted Earth asking for protection treaties. They want us to guarantee their security." Carter studied the map. "That is a lot of responsibility." "Yes, it is. And it is responsibility we never wanted, but we have it now, whether we like it or not. By revealing the Shadow Fleet, we have changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Smaller species see us as their shield. Larger species see us as a threat. Everyone is recalculating their strategies." Stone sat down heavily. "I have been commanding the Shadow Fleet for 20 years, Captain. 20 years of hiding, training, preparing for a war I hoped would never come. Now that war has come and gone in 20 minutes, and I'm not sure if we won or lost. We saved the Calorian survivors," Carter said. "We punished the Zephrons. We showed the galaxy that betraying Earth's allies has consequences. How is that not winning?" "Because now we have to live with what we did," Stone replied. "We have to carry the weight of 8,000 deaths. We have to explain to ourselves and to history why those deaths were necessary. And we have to convince the galaxy that we are not the monsters we appeared to be for those 20 minutes. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Do you know why I agreed to command the Shadow Fleet, Captain? It was not for glory or power. It was because I believed, truly believed, that the mere existence of these ships would prevent war. I thought if everyone knew we had this capability, no one would dare attack us or our friends." "That is still true," Carter said. "After today, no one will dare betray humanity's allies. The Zephrons paid the price for everyone else's education." "Maybe," Stone said. "Or maybe we just taught the galaxy to fear us instead of respect us. Fear can prevent war, but it can also cause it. Scared people do desperate things." Carter joined him at the window. "What would you have done differently?" Stone thought for a long moment. "Nothing. The Zephrons made their choice. We made ours. But that does not mean I have to like it. That does not mean I sleep well at night. Over the next few days, preparations were made to return the Zephron prisoners. Each one was given medical clearance. Each one was interviewed and their testimony recorded. Each one was told exactly what message they were expected to deliver when they returned home. On the day of their departure, Carter watched as the Zephron survivors boarded transport ships. They moved slowly, many still recovering from their injuries. Some looked relieved to be going home. Others looked ashamed. A few looked angry, as if they had learned nothing from the experience. One Zephron officer approached Carter before boarding. He was older, his shell scarred from years of military service. "Human Captain, I have a question." "Ask it," Carter said. "Why did you save us? After what we did, you could have let us die. No one would have blamed you. Why show mercy to enemies?" Carter looked at him steadily. "Because we needed to prove something. Not to you, but to ourselves. We needed to prove that we could use overwhelming force and still maintain our humanity. That we could destroy our enemies and still honor our values. You are proof that we succeeded." The Zephron officer nodded slowly. "I will tell my people what happened here. I will tell them about your power and your mercy. Some will listen, some will not. That is all we can ask for," Carter said. The transport ships departed, carrying their passengers back to Zephron space. With them went recordings of the battle, testimony from survivors, and a formal message from Earth Command. The message was simple but clear. This is what happens when you betray humanity's allies. This is what happens when you commit war crimes and genocide. But this is also what happens when you surrender and accept responsibility. You live, you go home, you get another chance. Learn from this. The galaxy is watching. Back on the Valiant, Lieutenant Brooks approached Carter. "Sir, we have received new orders. We are to return to Earth for debriefing and reassignment." "Understood." "Set course for home." As the Valiant turned toward Earth, Carter took one last look at the battlefield. The debris from the Calorian and Zephron fleets still floated in space, a permanent memorial to what had happened here. Recovery teams were working to retrieve bodies and salvage what they could. It would take months to clean up the mess, but the real work was just beginning. The galaxy had changed. Earth had revealed its hidden strength, and now everyone was adjusting to this new reality. Some species would seek Earth's protection, others would seek Earth's destruction. The balance of power had shifted, and no one knew where it would settle. Carter knew that his role in this change was significant. He had been the one to call for Protocol Omega. He had triggered the chain of events that led to the Shadow Fleet's emergence. That knowledge would stay with him forever, along with the images of what those ships could do. As the stars streamed past the Valiant's windows, Carter wondered what the future would bring. Would the Shadow Fleet prevent future wars, or would it start new ones? Would humanity use its power wisely, or would it become the very threat it had built the Shadow Fleet to oppose? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The Shadow Fleet had arrived. Carter watched as ship after ship emerged from the tiers in space. Each one was a masterpiece of human engineering and a nightmare of destructive power. These were not the friendly exploration ships that most aliens saw when they met humanity. These were war machines, pure and simple. Commander Hamilton was tracking all the new arrivals on his screens. "Captain, I count 27 capital ships. The lead vessel is identifying itself as the Harbinger. They are hailing us now, audio only." "Put it through," Carter ordered. A deep voice filled the bridge. It was calm and controlled, but there was something dangerous underneath. "Captain Carter, this is Commander Victor Stone of the Shadow Fleet. We have reviewed your tactical recordings of the battle. Where are the Zephrons now?" Carter pulled up his tactical map. "They are near the 4th planet. 31 ships total. They have finished their attack and are regrouping. Right now they are broadcasting messages about their victory to their home worlds." There was a pause. Then Stone spoke again, and his voice carried a terrible promise. "Broadcasting, good, let them. Let the whole galaxy watch what happens next. Captain, power down your stealth systems and move behind our fleet. You have earned the right to see this." The Valiant moved into position behind the massive Shadow Fleet. Carter could feel the tension on his bridge. Every crew member knew they were about to witness something historic. Something that would be talked about for generations. The Shadow Fleet began moving forward. They did not rush. There was no hurry. The Zephrons were not going anywhere. The human ships advanced slowly, deliberately, like predators stalking prey. "Sir, the Zephrons have detected the Shadow Fleet," Brooks reported. "They are powering up their weapons and forming a defensive line." Carter watched the Zephron ships scramble into formation. 31 ships against 27. The numbers were close. The Zephrons probably thought they had a chance. They had just destroyed an entire fleet after all. They were feeling confident and strong. They had no idea what was coming. Stone's voice came through the speakers again. "All ships, this is Commander Stone. The Zephrons have betrayed our allies. They have murdered innocent refugees trying to escape. Under Protocol Omega, we are authorized to use any means necessary. Ghost Squadron, begin Phase 1. On the tactical display, 12 smaller ships suddenly vanished. One moment they were there, clear as day on the sensors. The next moment they were gone. It was as if they had never existed at all. Hamilton's hands flew across his controls trying to find the missing ships. "Sir, I have lost all tracking on the Ghost Squadron. Our most advanced sensors cannot find them. They are completely invisible." "That is the point," Carter said quietly. "Watch the Zephron formation." For 3 long minutes nothing seemed to happen. The Zephron ships maintained their defensive positions. Their sensors swept through space desperately, looking for the invisible enemy, but they found nothing. Then their ships began to die, but not from explosions. From something worse, it started with their sensors. One by one, every Zephron ship went blind. Their instruments stopped working. They could not see where the enemy was or where their own ships were. They were flying blind in the darkness of space. Then their shields collapsed. The protective energy barriers that surrounded each ship simply failed. Electromagnetic pulses, invisible and unstoppable, had overwhelmed every defense system they had. Finally, their weapons stopped working. Targeting computers failed. Power systems shut down. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Zephron fleet had been rendered helpless. They sat in space, blind, defenseless, and unable to fight back, and they still could not see what had attacked them. "Phase 1 complete," Stone announced. "All ships advance. Let them see what is coming for them." The Harbinger moved forward, and the rest of the Shadow Fleet followed. They emerged from the darkness like nightmares made real. Their weapons were powered and ready, but they were not firing yet. The message was clear. "We could have killed you already. We chose not to. We want you to understand what is about to happen." Brooks checked her communications panel. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the Zephron flagship. Audio only. It is their commander." "Let us hear it," Carter said. The voice that came through was very different from before. Gone was the confident, cruel tone that had ordered the Calorian massacre. Now the Zephron commander sounded terrified. "Human vessels, this is Commander Zrask of the Zephron hegemony. We surrender. We invoke the Galactic Convention on Rules of War. We demand quarter and protection as prisoners of war." Stone's response was ice cold. "You murdered refugees in escape pods. You destroyed an entire fleet under a flag of truce. You broadcast your war crimes as entertainment for your people. The Galactic Convention does not apply to war criminals, Commander. It never has, but we followed the laws of war. Phase 2, Stone said simply. "Fire!" The Shadow Fleet opened fire. What happened next was beyond anything Carter had ever seen, even in simulations and training exercises. The weapons used by the Shadow Fleet were not designed to be merciful or quick. They were designed to make examples. They were designed to create such terror that no one would ever dare repeat the Zephron's crimes. The Harbinger fired its main weapon first. It was called a gravitic disruptor, and it was a weapon that Earth had promised never to use. The weapon reached out across space and touched the Zephron flagship. The ship did not explode. Explosions would have been too quick, too merciful. Instead, the ship simply came apart. Every molecule, every atom that made up the ship and its crew lost its connection to the atoms next to it. The ship dissolved into its component parts. Lieutenant Brooks turned away from her screen, her face green and sick. "Captain, I cannot watch this. It is too horrible." Carter's voice was hard and unyielding. "Yes, you can, Lieutenant. And yes, you will. Every member of this crew needs to see what happens when someone betrays humanity's trust. We need to remember this feeling. We need to remember why we never want to do this again. We need to carry this weight so that future generations will not have to." The other Shadow Fleet ships engaged their targets. The battle cruisers fired relativistic projectiles. These were chunks of metal accelerated to 99% of light speed. When they hit a Zephron ship, the kinetic energy released was enormous. Each impact was like a small nuclear explosion. Ships were torn apart instantly. The carrier ships launched fighters, but these were not normal fighters. They had no living pilots. Instead, they were controlled by artificial intelligence. These AI systems had been designed for one purpose only: to kill with perfect efficiency. They had no mercy, no hesitation, no moral doubts. They simply killed, and they did it very well. Hamilton watched his tactical display with a mix of horror and professional interest. "Captain, the AI fighters are targeting life support systems specifically. They are not going for quick kills. They are disabling the ships and letting the crews suffocate slowly." "That is intentional," Carter said. "The Zephyrans are broadcasting this battle back to their homeworlds. Every second of suffering serves a purpose. It teaches a lesson that will never be forgotten." The Ghost-class ships, now visible again, launched boarding pods. These small craft attached themselves to disabled Zephyron ships and sent in combat drones. But these drones were not there to capture the ships. They had a different mission. Within minutes, they had downloaded every bit of data from the Zephyron computers. The data painted a damning picture. The ambush had been planned for months. The Zephyrons had fed false intelligence to the Calorians. They had manipulated patrol routes and schedules. They had coordinated with 6 other alien species to divide up Calorian territory after the massacre. This was not just a betrayal. It was genocide, carefully planned and executed. Commander Stone's voice came through on an open channel, broadcasting to every ship in the system and far beyond. "Let the record show what we have found. The Zephyron hegemony did not just attack our allies. They conspired with 6 other species to commit genocide. They planned to divide Calorian space among themselves. This is the evidence. This is the truth, and this is justice." The assault continued with mechanical precision. There was no anger in the way the Shadow Fleet fought. No rage or fury. Just cold, calculated destruction carried out with the efficiency that only humanity could achieve when they decided something needed to die. 20 minutes after the engagement began, the Zephyron fleet was destroyed. 31 ships had been reduced to 27 drifting wrecks. 4 ships had been completely vaporized. Their atoms scattered across space as a warning to others who might think about following the Zephyrons' example. Then Commander Stone gave an order that surprised everyone on the Valiant. "All ships cease fire, scan for survivors, and begin rescue operations. Medical teams prepare to receive wounded." Brooks looked up in shock. "Sir, did he just order rescue operations?" "They are going to save the Zephyrons?" Carter understood immediately. It was brilliant and terrible at the same time. The Zephyrons had shown no mercy. They had killed defenseless people in escape pods. Now humanity would show the opposite. They would save every Zephyron they could. They would provide medical care and treat their injuries. The rescued Zephyrons would go home with stories. They would tell their people about the overwhelming power they... Captain John Carter stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Valiant. His hands gripped the metal rail so hard that his knuckles turned white. Through the large window in front of him, he could see something terrible happening. The Calorian fleet was dying. The Calorians had been friends with Earth for 12 years. They had fought together in wars. They had traded goods and shared technology. They had trusted each other with their lives. But now their ships were breaking apart in space, torn to pieces by weapons fire. The attackers were the Zephyrons. They looked like giant insects with hard shells and many legs. The Zephyrons had promised safe passage through their space. They had signed papers. They had smiled and spoken words of friendship. But it was all lies. Lieutenant Amy Brooks sat at her station watching her screens with wide eyes. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Captain, the Calorian ships are sending distress signals. They are trying to escape in small pods. But sir, the Zephyrons are shooting at the escape pods. They are killing the survivors." Carter felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. It was not anger, not yet. It was something darker. Something buried deep inside every human. For thousands of years, humans had tried to be civilized. They had learned to talk instead of fight. They had learned to make peace instead of war. But the galaxy was reminding them of something they had tried to forget. "What weapons do we have ready?" Carter asked. His voice was quiet but firm. Commander Greg Hamilton checked his screens. "All weapons are ready, sir. Railguns are charged. Missiles are loaded. But Captain, we are just one ship. They have 30 ships out there. If we fight them, we will die." "We will not fight them," Carter said. "Not yet. Open a special channel to Earth Command. Use the fastest communication system we have. Make sure it is encrypted so no one else can hear. Brooks worked quickly at her controls. Carter sat down at his captain's chair and began writing a message. The words came easily because they came from his heart, filled with rage and pain. This is Captain John Carter of the UES Valiant calling Earth Command. I am watching the Zephron forces destroy the Calorian fleet. This was not a battle. This was a trap. The Zephrons invited the Calorians here for military exercises. The Calorians trusted them. We told the Calorians they could trust the Zephrons. We were wrong. He paused and watched another Calorian ship explode. The bright flash of light meant hundreds of lives ended in an instant. The Zephrons are now hunting the escape pods. They are killing defenseless people who are trying to survive. Captain, I request immediate permission for Protocol Omega. The galaxy needs to remember why humans do not make empty threats. The galaxy needs to remember what we can do when we are pushed too far. The bridge became very quiet. Every crew member knew what Protocol Omega meant. Earth had spent 100 years being nice. They had made friends. They had proven they could be trusted. They had shown they were civilized. But civilization was a choice. And sometimes when evil appeared, you had to make a different choice. Lieutenant Brooks looked up from her station. Her face was pale. Sir, Earth Command is responding. It is Admiral Helen Morrison herself. Put it on the main screen, Carter ordered. Admiral Morrison appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with gray hair pulled back tight. Her eyes looked hard as stone. Behind her, Carter could see the command center at Earth. People were moving quickly, preparing for something big. Captain Carter, I have received your message and reviewed the battle recordings you sent. Protocol Omega is now authorized. All safety limits are removed. The Shadow Fleet is already moving toward your position. They will arrive in 6 hours. Carter felt the universe shift. 6 hours. In 6 hours, the Zephrons would learn something terrible. They would learn why Earth had built special ships and hidden them away. They would learn why humans had secrets. Understood, Admiral. What should I do until the fleet arrives? Morrison did not smile. Stay alive, Captain. Keep your ship safe and record everything that happens. The whole galaxy will want to know exactly why we are going to do what we are about to do. Make sure they understand. The transmission ended. Carter turned back to his crew. He could see his own feelings reflected in their faces. They were scared but determined. Helm, activate all stealth systems. Take us into that asteroid field over there and make us invisible. We are going to watch every second of this massacre. When our fleet arrives, the Zephrons are going to pay for every single Calorian life they have taken today. The Valiant moved quietly into the field of floating rocks. The ship became almost impossible to detect. Carter opened his computer and accessed files he had hoped never to see. They were marked with the highest security levels. Project Reaper, Project Ghost, Project Fury. Each one was a different type of warship that Earth had built in secret. These ships were not designed for exploration. They were not designed for trade or diplomacy. They were designed for one single purpose: to destroy enemies so completely that no one would dare attack Earth or its friends ever again. Carter read the files and felt a chill run down his spine. The weapons described in these documents were terrifying. Some could tear apart the very fabric of space. Others could make ships vanish from sensors completely. Some had artificial intelligence that could think and kill faster than any living being. Earth had built these ships 20 years ago, after the first contact war with an alien race that had tried to exterminate humanity. Earth had won that war, but barely. 3 billion humans had died. After that, Earth's leaders had made a decision. They would try for peace, but they would prepare for war. They would smile and trade and make friends, but they would keep a terrible weapon hidden just in case. Sir, the Zephrons have finished destroying the Calorian fleet, Hamilton reported. They are celebrating. They are sending messages back to their home planets, bragging about their victory. Let them celebrate, Carter said coldly. Let them enjoy these last few hours. Because when the Shadow Fleet arrives, they will learn what real fear feels like. Brooks turned in her chair. Captain, I am scared. What we are about to do, it will change everything. The whole galaxy will see what humans are capable of. Carter nodded. You are right to be scared, Lieutenant. What we are about to do is terrible. But sometimes terrible things are necessary. The Zephrons need to learn that actions have consequences. Every other species in the galaxy needs to learn that you cannot betray humanity's friends and get away with it. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the debris field where the Calorian ships had died. Thousands of people had been killed today, men, women, children, all dead because the Zephrons wanted their territory and resources. The Calorians trusted us, Carter continued. They believed us when we said the Zephrons could be trusted. We vouched for them. We told them it was safe. And now they are dead. We owe them justice. We owe them revenge. The hours passed slowly. The crew watched as the Zephron fleet regrouped and began looting the destroyed Calorian ships. They watched as the Zephrons laughed and celebrated their victory. They watched and recorded everything, building a case that would justify what was coming. Finally, after 5 hours and 42 minutes, Hamilton spoke with excitement in his voice. Captain, I am detecting something strange at the edge of the star system. Massive energy readings. Multiple ships are about to arrive. Carter smiled for the first time since the battle had begun. It was not a happy smile. That will be our fleet. Everyone watch closely. You are about to witness something that has not been seen in 20 years. You're about to see the Shadow Fleet in action. On the screen, space itself began to twist and bend. Reality seemed to break apart as enormous amounts of energy tore holes in the universe, and through those holes the Shadow Fleet began to emerge. The first ship to appear was massive, 3 kilometers long and colored pure black. It seemed to absorb all light that touched it. There were no lights on its hull, no markings or decorations. It was a void in space, a piece of darkness given shape and purpose. My God, Brooks whispered. That is the Harbinger. More ships followed. Smaller vessels that could disappear from sensors. Battle cruisers covered in weapons. Carriers the size of moons. 27 ships in total, each one designed to bring death and destruction on a scale the galaxy had never seen. Carter watched with grim satisfaction. The Zephrons had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened something that Earth had kept sleeping for 2 decades. Now they would face the consequences of their cruelty and betrayal. Now they would learn why humanity was a species you never wanted as an enemy.